Trainees from ethnic minority backgrounds, international medical graduates, and those with disabilities and long-term conditions have a poorer experience and disproportionately worse outcomes from their training when compared to their peers. This is differential attainment. And these differential outcomes exist in both undergraduate and postgraduate contexts, across recruitment, progression through training, ARCPs, and in exam pass rates.
My name is Ayade Adeshina. I'm an ST5 in pediatrics. It was the fact that I was far away from home. I didn't know anyone. I was just like really on my own. I think one of the big things is not even knowing the questions to ask. So I've never been in a country where you had bleeps, so I didn't know how bleeps worked. I just knew that somebody gave me something and they said people will call me on this, and I was supposed to receive those calls somehow. And I was like, I don't know how bleeps work. So I had to run into the toilet because I was so embarrassed about it. I had to run into the toilet and Google how to bleep.
And then stereotype, prejudice, we all know. I don't want to say UK is a racist country. It's not, but there is still some element of racism in the United Kingdom. And when I started in the prison as a band 5, majority, I would say 90% of the staff working there are all whites. So for you, you are like a lone voice in the wilderness. The people don't take you serious. They're like, what does she know? Where is she coming from? Oh, that the black lady. So it's there's a lot. I encountered a lot of prejudice.
In 2020, I applied for GP training in the UK. It was to be my first NHS job. Having just moved to the UK, I expected it to be challenging, but nothing could have prepared me for what I experienced. The first rotation was in a rural part of northern England, where I was the only black person in the village. I dealt with racism and rejection, even from the patients I sought to help. I particularly remember attending a home visit in the thick of the pandemic, and a patient turned me away for no reason, and turned around to complain that the doctors weren't seeing patients. I remember a head nurse made a formal complaint about me after my first day at a new post, because I spent a long time doing my clinical documentation and she was unable to approach me to tell me about a task she wanted done. You would think it was simple to talk to someone who was typing notes on a computer. The work environment was hostile, yet everyone had a smile on their faces. I was constantly looking over my back. Once I confided in my clinical supervisor, and a staff confronted me the next day asking why anyone would suggest there was racism in the workplace. I went through all of this while watching my other colleagues and how they would make life much easier for other junior doctors who were not international medical graduates. The bullying, discrimination, and lack of support led to loss of confidence and depression. I ended up on antidepressants. I sat for the RCGP AKT examination and had an abysmal result. I was done. I was either going to get transferred to a place that was more accepting of international medical graduates or stop practicing medicine in the UK. After my application being turned down twice, I was eventually transferred to a city. I attempted the AKT again and passed so well, it seemed like it was a different person who took the exam.
I have witnessed and been involved in numbers of issues with people who have experienced racism. That's been from service users, patients, colleagues, and managers, and it's very disappointing to hear that. I think it's also a systemic thing. So, it's about when people apply for jobs, what's their chances of getting the jobs. And I think nationally at the moment, the statistic is that white colleagues from shortlisting are 1.6 times more likely to be appointed to a role. And that in itself is something that isn't right.
So thinking about my own journey as, a Muslim female academic, as you mentioned, there have been, significant barriers and hurdles that I've kind of personally faced, and I'm sure that many other women in the same kind of area or sphere have also perhaps faced as well. And I think one of the main themes, kind of reflecting on my own journey so far, is often, that you are kind of put into a deficit model. So a model where perceptions of you that are influenced, by it can be by mainstream media, it can be by not being represented in spaces that you're moving into. Also, that can often, put you in a position where you're being overlooked for leadership opportunities, promotion, kind of pathway opportunities, the formative opportunities that really open up, a gateway of other opportunities for you then to kind of move into.
Some of my senior colleagues here in psychiatry who were from India or from Pakistan, they haven't been to those countries in a while, but just second generation kind of immigrants, and they sort of just understood where I was coming from when I spoke about a few family things and how they could affect me in clinical practice. For example, childcare arrangements and things. And although I didn't expect them to understand, they just kind of did, the family expectations that we have as different cultures, and how that can impact your clinical life, if that makes sense, and how I could be needing more support at work.
Oh, the reverse mentoring program, I first thing I want to say is that it was an excellent experience that, for me to go through it. It feels like a strong step in the right direction. In the reverse mentoring programs, the kind of strategies I used was case studies. I kind of said, this is the scenario. Why do you think, how would you approach, intervening in this scenario? Why do you think this person is hurt? Or do you even think that this person should be hurt? If you think they should be hurt, why do you think they're hurt? And how can you make it better? And how can we improve the situation going forward?
One is that we acknowledging that it's there, acknowledging it within our own selves, and then acknowledging it within the team, and seeing, okay, how can we make this a positive outcome? So it's all about self-awareness and self-reflection, So there's a lot we can do.
The important thing is to go and see those individuals who have been infected by it after the event. Ask how they are. Ask how you could support them. Ask if there's anything different you could have done for them at the time. And just give them that level of support that they need. And that makes so much difference to people. And I think the other side of that is, if you've got international medical graduates who have moved halfway across the world to work here, ask how they're settling in. Ask what they need to support them. Is there anything that you can do as an individual that will help their lives?
We're really seeing the value in diversity. So again, how is that reflected in an organization's culture? And how is that represented across, the various governance structures as well, to kind of create the pipeline for, senior leaders across that particular institution. And again, normalizing this idea of diversity at each level. And again, then you create that pipeline for, future leaders that also kind of see the value.
I think what I had, if I look back on my career path, was I had people who really cared about my development and who helped me and supported me, who pushed me really hard. When it was exam time, they would practice and practice and practice and practice. And I would say, so, having those of us who are trainers and educators need to have that in mind to support people to get to where they want to. But on the other hand, I would also say we need to look at our systems and processes, because we should ask ourselves the question, why should somebody, simply because of who they are, have to be disadvantaged by our systems and processes?
My advice to others on dealing with these difficult situations, it is really to equip yourself so you can find your own way of dealing with them. The best thing I did recently was to go on an excellent workshop. It was called the Active Bystander Training, and I'm sure there are others like it that take you through the steps of what you can actually do in a challenging situation, actual action points. I'm a person of action, and that really, really helped me. For example, if you come across a challenging situation or behavior that is inequitable or discriminatory, then you could stop and say something then at that time if you feel able to. But if you don't feel able to act at that time, then say something later to the chair, to a colleague, to the person targeted. Say that you thought that that behavior was inappropriate. You don't have to always call it out in a big and formal way if you don't feel able to. But if you have noticed it, then it is vital not to be a silent bystander.
I try to support other international medical graduates to prevent them from having an experience as bad as mine. But when I see the statistics of the international medical graduates that don't excel in medical examinations, I wonder how many of them are struggling with many other problems that they will never be able to share.
We have to listen to the voices of people who have gone through it and be able to put out programs that not feel good, because there's the whole equality and diversity thing that we have, which is practically a tick box and is doing next to nothing for people of color. So in order to close those gaps, we need to listen to the people who are in those shoes. We need to get them, we need to empower them to be able to be part of those changes. And I don't expect I don't know, it's probably personal, but I don't expect the playing field to be completely level in my lifetime. But I do expect to see improvements. I do expect to, by the time, I stop being a doctor, by the time I retire, I expect that the doctors who are in the system at that time have a much better lived experience than I did, than I am having even now.
I hope to see a better NHS, even if not for anything, to provide a better future for our children and the next generation coming up. And I think it's doable. It's just for everybody to put hands on deck, but we will see a better workforce and a brighter NHS.
And I think that the workforce, when we look at attainment and differential attainment, will really improve our access to skills and access to expertise, and also improve our productivity as a whole. So that's my ambition for the medium to long term.
I think most of these incidents are not actually, sort of hard racism. It's mostly just soft biases which people have had, at least in my experience. I know some people might have had very different experiences, but in my experience, it's been mostly just unconscious biases that people have held against different cultures. For example, thinking if you're from Pakistan, your training must have been like this. But actually, when you talk to them about it, they're very open to discussing it, and they do want to accept that your training could be better. And then, for example, when I worked in front of them, they said, "Oh, actually, you're not too bad. So maybe it's not too bad in where you came from." So it's about those biases, and also trying to recognize that people who've grown up in a different country are not going to know everything about your country. So it's not always about, oh, they must hate me. It's not that. It's just that, we're all busy. We're all doctors, nurses. Everybody in healthcare is quite busy. We don't actually sit down and think about the unconscious biases we have. So sometimes if you detect something of that sort with somebody, if you get the time, try to clear that out with them and educate them.
Having a mentor is really important, I think, as well. Whether they're directly involved in your EDI work or not, if they can see kind of the value of what you're doing and be a bit of a cheerleader and see the potential in you, that can be really motivating, and especially when you might be feeling quite disheartened, and rightly so, if you're not seeing very much progress in what you're doing.
I feel we need a paradigm shift if we're going to level up medical education. We need to address the fact that some educators may have low expectations from ethnic minority trainees and international graduates. The risk is that they may pay less attention to them, provide them with perhaps few opportunities. And this isn't just about prejudice, but it's about the advantage we give to others. You see, privilege is not about the presence of benefits, but it's all about the absence of barriers that you've not had to face. So the ABC for me is to think about the assets our learners bring and value them. Think about how we can create a sense of belonging for all our staff. And finally, to create an environment of cultural safety where there is absolutely no assault on your identity and you can bring your authentic self to work.
We may need help to find our feet. I'm not excusing incompetence. I'm simply saying, let's be aware. Let's be kind. That colleague you're writing off may just need a little bit of help to be at par. You don't want to know how much he or she is already self-criticizing. Many thanks to our colleagues and supervisors who have encouraged and supported me so far. I'm in a better place and I am grateful to them. It is my desire to pass this forward to everyone and everywhere I go.